Let's take a look at this slope-intercept form of a linear equation. We learned that the slope-intercept form of a linear equation can be written in the form y equals mx plus b, where the letter m is actually going to be a number that represents the slope. The letter b is a number that's going to represent our y-intercept. Here's a few things to remember about each of these terms. Slope is actually measuring the steepness of a line. It represents the constant rate of change. It is written as rise over run, and in a word problem, you can usually identify the slope by looking for the word per. Now, for y-intercept, the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. It's also where in a table you look for the x value of 0, and it's the starting amount or the number that's only going to happen once. So let's see how this applies in some of the problems you're going to be asked to do. Looking back at this equation again, oftentimes you're going to be given a linear equation, and it's going to ask you to identify the slope and the y-intercept of that equation. So if I look at this y equals 3x plus 2, and I look back up at my equation, I remember m is my slope. So in this equation, that means m is going to be my 3 because it's attached to the x like it is up here in my original equation. B over here is the y-intercept. So down here, that other number of 2, that means that 2 is my b or my y-intercept. Let's do another one. Y equals negative 2x plus 4. Again, the slope is going to be with the x. In this case, the number with the x happens to be a negative 2. Here's where you need to be really careful. Our slope is in fact negative 2. You need to make sure that you're actually writing that negative symbol because 2 is not the same thing as negative 2. Then for identifying our y-intercept again is this number over here, which in this case is going to be our 4. Now, a couple special scenarios I want to make sure we go over. Look at these two equations. Sometimes they're going to throw problems at you that are going to try to trick you. So let's take a look at this first one. Y equals 25 minus 6x. If I had developed a habit of recognizing the form y equals mx plus b, in my brain, it might be saying that first number I come to is always going to be my slope. So initially you might be thinking, hey, 25 is going to be my slope. That is not the case here. The slope, again, is a constant rate of change. It's going to be the number that's going to happen over and over again. So it's going to be sitting with the x to represent our independent variable or our number that's actually going to be multiplied by that constant rate. So in this situation, the number with the x right here is the 6. Now, here's another place you need to be very careful. This 6 is actually not a 6 at all. It actually takes the sign in front of it. In this situation, that sign is a negative, so that 6 is actually a negative 6. So our slope is a negative 6, not a positive 6. That leaves the 25 right here as our y-intercept or our b. One more thing to look at. Look right here. We've got y equals 1/2 x minus 5. This time, our slope is with the x. So again, it's this number here. That is a fraction. Sometimes we're going to run into fractions as our number for slope, and that's okay because we already know the slope is a measurement of the rise over the run of a line. If this is my slope, that leaves this negative 5. Again, that minus sign in front of the 5 indicates that that is a negative value. So our y-intercept would be negative 5.